Now let's go ahead and jump into the more advanced functions on the graph editor. We'll be using the same vocal from the last video, and I went ahead and just rescanned everything so that way we don't have any edits that we had from the previous videos. So we just kind of have the default vocal. Then from here, we can use the individual controls to adjust our vocal performance. So the first advanced control that I want to talk about is the per object controls. Graph mode features a selection of per object controls that enable you to fine tune the settings of individual notes or phrases. This is super nice because it enables a lot more natural pitch correction, especially if you're going for something that's less of like an auto-tune sound and you're looking for more natural and transparent pitch correction. This control is really, really helpful for that. So the first of which is you have the ability to adjust the retune speed. So let's go ahead and grab this note right here. I'm going to go ahead and select that. By the way, I have this multi-tool enabled. We'll talk more about these tools here in a moment, but for now, just go ahead and click over to this one. So that way you can select notes. And we're going to go ahead and select that first note. And then over here on the right-hand side, we have this retune speed, vibrato, and format controls. These controls are applied individually to the selected note objects. It can either be a single note, or I can go ahead and select multiple different notes. And you can see that now both of them are selected and these controls up here are highlighted. Let's go ahead and just apply it maybe to these first two notes just to show it off. I'm going to go ahead and select those first two ones, and then let's go ahead and talk about the retune speed. So just kind of like in auto mode, the retune speed in graph mode handles how rapidly the pitch correction is applied to the incoming audio. Whenever you're using this mode, you can assign different retune speeds to individual correction objects or individual notes inside of a vocal performance. And this basically enables really advanced pitch correction. So you could have a single note in a sequence that's super hard tuned, then the rest of them are much more natural. It just gives you a lot more ability to edit everything. Go ahead and crank this all the way up and let's listen to what this sounds like. You can also see visually that interface has changed. So now those two objects in the beginning are going to be a lot more pitch corrected. So you can hear this has that kind of natural vibrato happening. Then these ones don't have any of that natural vibrato. Then if I reduce this, it'll kind of bring that back in. And then this control is actually how you would go through and adjust the entire performance. So if I wanted to take all of these, select all those individual notes, and just retune them just slightly, I could use just a little bit of that retuning speed, and it'll retune that vocal just a little bit. Or if I wanted to hard tune an entire performance, go ahead and crank that all the way up, and it's going to give hard tuning on each of those individual notes. You go ahead and just double click that to kind of reset it to its default, but that's how you would actually tune an entire performance really quickly. So the next control here is going to be the vibrato control. I'm going to go ahead and select those first two notes again. Then we can play around with this vibrato control. So this control allows you to either increase or decrease the range of vibrato that is already present in your audio signal. So this isn't going to add vibrato that isn't there. It's going to take an existing performance and either enhance or decrease the amount of vibrato that's already present there in your audio. Let's go ahead and crank this up. And now you can see this went ahead and added in quite a bit more variation here, especially in that little note transition happening here. Especially right there, you can hear a lot more vibrato. We go ahead and reset that and pay attention to this section. And then this would be all the way up. So right here, you can hear a lot more vibrato. There's also this little pitch artifact here as well, but that's just enhancing that amount of vibrato. If I wanted to take down the amount of vibrato to make it a little bit more robotic, I could decrease that. And now it reduces the amount of vibrato in my audio signal. Then we have this format control. So let me go ahead and select maybe this first note here. And then in order to use this, right now you can see that it is grayed out. We have to go ahead and turn on the format control. So that way that is enabled. And then I can adjust the formats of my audio. So this works just like the format control up top, but it's going to happen on an individual note by note basis. Let's turn that down to get a really extreme effect. So in that first note, you can hear there's a lot of format shifting, and that second note, you have none of it. Or you could crank that all the way up to get that kind of higher pitched sound. That's going to adjust the formats of your audio. And the reason that this is helpful is if you're using really hard retuning speeds, let's say you had a lot of vibrato in that first note, and it's starting to sound a little bit more robotic, you can maybe reduce that format just a little bit. You can reduce that format just a little bit to kind of change the tonality of that vocal performance until it sounds more natural. Or you could use it for really extreme effects if you want to get super creative with it. And by the way, I'm just double clicking on these parameters to reset them to the default states. But that's what's happening with the format control. So it works on each of those individual notes, whereas this one is more global up top. The next section is going to be these controls over here, the data selection tools. These controls exist in this kind of floating display here on the right hand side, and they're used for things like cut, copy, and paste. So the first one's going to be the select all. So if I hit this, it's going to select all of the different correction objects. And this is a really great way to select all these. You can either take all of them and then adjust the pitch. And now I went ahead and changed the entire performance. I'm going to go ahead and undo that because that's rather extreme. Or you could use the select all function and then adjust the retune speed to quickly edit all the vocals all together. Then we have the option to clear our settings here. So let's say we made some adjustments here. And I can go ahead and undo that pitch correction object entirely, the time changes that I've done to that section, or both the pitch and time. It is worth noting that this works for the entirety of that performance, not just something on an individual level. So it is worth noting just so you don't accidentally delete your entire performance. But the nice thing is you can undo everything. So if you accidentally delete everything, you can always bring it back. But it is worth noting that that is what's happening. The next one is going to be the cut, copy, paste. So let's say I want to copy over this note. I can hit copy. And then I'll navigate over to the section where I want to paste it. And then I will hit paste. And it's going to give me this pop-up whenever I first do this. This lets you know kind of how these functions work. Once you kind of know how it all works, you can go ahead and click on this so it doesn't show you this pop-up every single time you click on it. But let's go ahead and click on this. And then all I have to do is sort of select where I want to paste it. So I'll go ahead and click there, and it's going to give me that entirety of that note value now at this different section here. And I can go ahead and just undo that if I don't want to have that different note there. And again, let's say I wanted this note and this entire length here. I could copy that, and I could use the paste controls. We'll just click where we want it. We could have it be right here, and it's going to go ahead and add that entire note value right here. The cut command over here is going to remove any of the selected objects, copy them to the clipboard, and then enable you to paste them. So let's say we want to remove this correction object. We could go ahead and hit cut. It's going to go ahead and put that into my clipboard, and then we could go ahead and paste that in. So we'll say we want to paste that in right here. Now it's going to go ahead and paste that in. So that's the difference between copy, paste, and then the cut, copy, and paste. Next, we have the drawing tools here along the top that are used for advanced editing of your pitch curves. These can actually be a lot of fun for creative sound design, or really helpful if you need a more advanced control over a given performance. So the first of these is going to be the line tool. I'll go ahead and click on that to select it. That gives me the option to go ahead and edit with this line tool. You can see that my cursor has changed this new icon, and that's letting me know that I'm now using the line tool. This tool just lets me create custom curves on top of existing correction objects. So to draw a line, let's say we wanted to make an adjustment here. I'm going to go ahead and select the line tool from the main graph and create my first anchor point by clicking. I'm going to click right there. And I'm going to drag it over to this section. And let's go ahead and create our second point. And let's make a third point here at the end. So I'm going to click one more time. I'm going to go ahead and double click. And that's going to go ahead and create that third point and then sort of exit out of this main menu. If the snap to note setting is enabled in the graph mode preferences, each segment will automatically snap to the nearest scale note, so it's all in pitch. You can also hold the shift key on your keyboard while drawing a line to temporarily toggle the states on the snap mode setting. It's another way to do it as well. Or you can use these curves really loosely to kind of edit the actual performance in a more detailed way. If you want to make a perfectly horizontal line, go ahead and hold down Option or Alt as you're dragging, and then click to create your points, and that'll enable a perfectly horizontal line. To delete the last anchor point that you entered, you can either press the delete key on the Mac, and it's going to go ahead and delete that anchor point, and then sort of go back to the first anchor point. So let's say we want to delete this one, go ahead and hit delete. It's going to go ahead and reset everything. I'm going to hit Command and Z to undo that because I want to keep those around, but that's helpful to know that that is there. Then the cool thing is now I can go ahead and select my multi-tool and move around these individual curves. So we can select on this node here, and I can drag that around and create some really advanced pitch curves here. So it just gives me a lot of advanced control here. I can play around with this curve. I can maybe adjust sections of this as well. So if you have that deselected, then you sort of hover over that section at the end, then I can actually just drag one of those individual points and create some really advanced pitch curves. So you can actually change the intonation of your singer quite a bit. So maybe we could drag that over. Go ahead and sort of adjust the timing here. So let's maybe see if we could drag that and then have that end bit, just have that little pitch variation here. So you can use this to really fine tune your performance depending on what you need. I'm gonna go ahead and just undo this real quick. Then we can go ahead and talk about the next tool, which is the curve tool. The curve tool is used to draw lines or curves on existing correction objects, including those notes or those curves depending on which one you're using inside of your main sequencer here. This one is a lot of fun, especially for creative effects. It's probably one of my favorite tools here because you can use this to add really subtle vibrato and changes to a given performance. So let's say we wanted more vibrato happening in the second half. I'm going to go ahead and just draw in a curve, create just a little bit of vibrato, and then maybe we want that last little bit to kind of go down in pitch and then back up. So now listen to what this sounds like. That's giving me a ton of control over that. Maybe we could have this kind of go down before it goes up to the main pitch. So a lot of cool stuff depending on what you want, but you can use that to manually draw in curves, or you can even create really crazy stuff too. Create like LFO curves or something. That could be used for a lot of really weird creative sound design, but I think that this is honestly one of my favorite tools, especially to add just a touch of vibrato to individual little sections of audio. It could be a lot of fun. The next draw tool is going to be the note tool, and this is used to draw notes. So all I have to do is click on this, and then I can go ahead and just click on this section to draw in a new note. Let's click and drag that to about here. That's going to go ahead and create that new note. Go back to the multi-tool so we can select it. Then we can adjust its position and then create different, more complicated note sequences. Obviously, that's a very extreme example here, but that's what that's used for. This can also be helpful too if it's, for some reason, not scanning audio properly. Let's say there was another note in the middle here, and it's just identifying it as a singular pitch correction object. You could select just that section to create that note, then you could drag that around in order to adjust it all properly. So the note tool is actually quite practical, especially if Auto-Tune doesn't scan something in by default. So that's a look at some of the different controls here on the advanced mode. In the next video, we'll wrap up our discussion on Auto-Tune and talk about some of the more advanced time correction options that are available on the plugin.